Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about my 5-star reads from 2024. I have had an incredible reading year. I am at, I believe, 92 books for the year, and I'm hoping I can hit 100 by the end of December. But in today's video we're going to be talking about my top favorite books, the ones that I gave 5 stars right after I read them. I feel like in the beginning of the year, I wasn't super strict with rating books. I would give a lot of books 4 to 5 stars if I liked it even a little bit. But as the year went on and I read an insane amount of books, I've gotten more strict with how I rate my books, and I definitely will be more strict in 2025. But yeah, these are the books that I gave 5 stars right after I finished reading them, and we're going to dive into each one and what I really, really loved about that specific book. So we're going to take it month by month. So starting off in January, I had one 5-star read, and that was A Guide to Being Just Friends by Sophie Sullivan. I don't have the physical book with me because I borrowed it to my sister, but overall, I loved this book. It is one of my favorite romances, I feel like, it was one of my favorite romances that I had read at the time back in January. Obviously, since then, I have read so many romances, but it just really, really stuck out to me. I loved the writing style, and this was my first Sophie Sullivan book, and yeah, I loved that it was a closed-door romance. I loved the characters, and as the title kind of suggests, they start by being just friends, and they're talking about how guys and girls can't be friends with each other because there's always romantic tension and stuff like that. So they have a guide to being just friends, and that kind of follows the book, and I really, really loved it. I mean, I read it so long ago, it feels like, but I just remember feeling so attached to both the male main character and the female main character, and I just thought they had a really, really honest relationship since they did start out as friends and kind of developed a deeper connection throughout the book. So yeah, definitely recommend checking that book out. Now let's move on to February. I also only had one 5-star read in this month, and that was In 5 Years. I absolutely love this book. It is still I would say it's top 5 of the best books that I have ever read. It's also the prettiest book ever. Look at that cover. Anyway, I love this book. I love the author so much. I really, really love her writing style. And I mean, the last sentence of the summary on the back, I feel perfectly embodies this whole book. It says, "In 5 Years is an unforgettable love story, but it is not the one you're expecting." And in this book, yeah, I don't want to say too much about it, but it just follows a lot of deep emotional storylines, and I feel the way she writes about just friendship and loss, it just really, really resonated with me, and I finished this book in one sitting. I remember picking it up, and then I got immediately hooked, and it's only 250 pages, but yeah, I read this so fast. I loved it. And this is one book that I just constantly think about, and I'm just remembering the story and how just beautiful the writing is. So definitely recommend reading this. It is worth all of the hype. Next up, we have March, and I also had one 5-star read, and that was Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. This was the first Abby Jimenez book that I had ever read, and I didn't really know what to expect from her writing. I just kind of bought her book because I knew that she was from Minnesota, which is where I live and where I'm from. So I was really, really excited to check her books out, and I had heard great things on Book Talk, but I had no idea what to expect. I was kind of expecting just a lighthearted romance, which there are definitely pieces of that in her writing where it is there's a lot of banter and funny stuff in her books, but I mean, Yours Truly specifically had a lot of mental health and anxiety representation, which is definitely what I love most about it, because I have struggled with that in the past, and I feel how Abby Jimenez wrote about it is the most realistic, I guess, portrayal of anxiety in a book that I have seen so far, and it just really, really, I don't know, it really resonated with me. And the anxiety is actually in the male main character, which I also thought was kind of refreshing to see, having a male main character talk about their mental health issues. And yeah, I don't know, I just feel she just portrayed it beautifully, and I don't know, it made me so emotional, and it just kind of felt like someone was writing about all the internal feelings that I have had. For example, in the book, she talks about how The male main character, he has to know like the restaurant they're going to because he needs to look at like the menu beforehand and plan out all these things. And I am the exact same way. Like I don't do well with like being surprised by things or going with the flow. I am a planner, so I really really like just that representation in the book. And I think this is probably still my favorite Abby Jimenez book because it just has stuck with me throughout the entire year. And yeah, I'm excited to reread it in the future because it was truly amazing. In April, I had 0 5-star reads. Not a great reading month for me. So moving on. In May, I had 3 5-star reads, which was so awesome. The first one is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I absolutely loved this book. I mean, my favorite Emily Henry book by far is Beach Read. I read that last year and I really, really enjoyed it. I loved the characters, but Happy Place is definitely my second favorite. I loved the main characters so much. I don't know, I just loved their connection. It was like a second chance romance. But the biggest thing about the book was just the idea of a happy place because I definitely have that. I am lucky enough to live in Minnesota where we have so many like lakes, and like going up to the lake is like a big thing for my family. And honestly, like when I think of a happy place, like I definitely have one. And I just love that that's like the book title and the theme around the book is that these group of friends with this old couple who broke up, they're going to their happy place for a while for a vacation. And yeah, that's why I just love the book. I loved the characters so much. I feel like they had a great connection. Like sometimes in books when it's like a second chance romance, I'm like they probably shouldn't get back together. Like they seem kind of toxic for each other. But I really really loved these characters and I just felt like they had such real and honest emotions, and yeah, that's why I loved it so much. Next up in May, I had The Rule Book. This is like a continuation kind of the cheat sheet. I guess they're like interconnected standalones. But yeah, I absolutely love this book. It had a fake marriage with an NFL player and his agent, and they actually used to date in college. And then they broke up, had like a messy breakup, and then they reconnected adulthood and get married, so they have to kind of fake it for a while. And I love the cheat sheet so much. That is one of my all-time favorite books. And this one is not as good as the cheat sheet, but it was still amazing. I loved the characters and their connection so much. And I mean, Sarah Adams is one of my favorite authors because her writing is amazing. Her characters are always so complex. And while it is like a lighthearted romance in a lot of ways, there are like some deeper struggles always included in the writing, which I really look for in books now because lighthearted romances are great, but I'm at the point where I don't just want to like watch a Hallmark movie. I want to have something that has a story to it. So yeah, absolutely loved this one. My last 5-star read in May was This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. I have mixed emotions about this book because like I said at the beginning of the video, after I read it, I immediately thought 5-star. But now that I have read some other books, this is one that like I'd have to reread it again to see how I actually feel about it. It might not still hold up as a 5-star, but like I said, after I read it, I immediately rated it as 5 stars. So I clearly connected with something about it. I just don't remember a lot from this book. Like other books have definitely like I've connected to more, but yeah, this was not really one of those books. But yeah, overall it was still a good like summer romance, and Carly Fortune's writing is really great. This one was about a girl who is like interested in her best friend's brother, and they had this like secret romance over many many years. And yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was good. I don't know, I'll have to maybe reread it next summer and see if my rating still holds up. In June I had one 5-star read, and that was One Italian Summer. This book really really stuck with me again, just like in 5 years. It follows our main character Katie, who her mother passes away very very suddenly, and it's just before they had planned on going on this like mother-daughter trip, and Katie ends up deciding to still go on the trip. And then when she's in Italy for this trip that she planned with her mother, she runs into her mother as a 30-year-old who's there. So it's kind of like magical realism. I don't know if that's technically what that's called. But anyway, I loved this book. I really have enjoyed books that kind of talk about grief just because I have experienced that myself. Like, I'm guessing most of us have. And yeah, I feel like this was just a really great way to explore her connection with her mother, and I loved it. I was very emotional while reading it, and it has still stuck with me ever since I read it. So yeah, this was an automatic 5-star for me. And yeah, I love this author so much. I always just want to keep reading her books because the writing is amazing and the story is always great. In July, I technically didn't have any 5-star reads. Every July for like the past 4 years, I have reread the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy, and that is a 5-star trilogy. But like, I'm just not going to count that as a 5-star read because I've read it so many times. But in August, I did have 3 5-star books. The first one is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This was like her new release this year, and I absolutely loved this book. I would say it's either my second favorite Abby Jimenez book or it's tied for first with yours truly, because this one is just amazing, and it's set in Minnesota. It's set like on the lake because the cover is gorgeous, so I really loved that because I live in Minnesota. And yeah, her writing is just amazing. She always creates complex characters that have such a real connection. And like, even though her books contain like a lot of like third act breakups, it's never about something like stupid. Because like sometimes in books, characters break up for dumb reasons. But Abby Jimenez is just not one of those authors. They always break up because they have very, very deep emotions or they have very traumatic things going on in their life. And yeah, that's what I love about her writing. It's just realistic, and I absolutely love this. This is, I mean, it has the male main character of Justin, who, he just sets the bar so high. He was such a great main male character, and yeah, love this book so much. Definitely read it, but definitely read it in the summer because it's a perfect summer book. Next in August, I read the Happy Ever After playlist, also by Abby Jimenez. You're going to see a little bit of a theme going on in this month. I really, really enjoyed this book too. This one does have a grief element because it follows Sloane, who lost her fiance 2 years ago. And I know I'm reading this like interconnected trilogy out of order, but that's fine. Anyway, and Sloane starts meeting like this famous musician, and they start kind of having a little romance. And yeah, once again, I feel like I really just connected this with this book because of the grief element. But also looking back, I don't know if I would still rate this 5 stars. It's another one of those books where I feel like I would have to reread it if I wanted to change my rating, but just given the other books I have read this year, I don't know if this one necessarily compares. Like, it hasn't stuck with me like other books have, if that makes sense. My last 5-star book in August was The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. Obviously, we are sensing a pattern. After I read Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, then I just like picked up all of her books because I was obsessed. Anyway, so The Friend Zone, I don't know. This is another book where I'm like, I need to reread it because I don't know if I would feel the same way. Obviously, it follows people that become friends, and they're like both kind of into each other, but they're just trying to stay friends. They're trying to just stay friends, and that's really the whole book. Yeah, overall, I liked it after I read it, but it's just one of those books where like the characters haven't stuck with me throughout the entire year, so I don't know. Take that with a grain of salt, but if I ever were to change my rating, it would still be like 4.5 or a 4-star. So in September, I didn't have any 5-star books, so let's move on to October, where I had one 5-star book, which was Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. First of all, let's take a moment to appreciate this book cover. It's beautiful. Let's check out the back. Amazing. Now, I read Better Than the Movies like right when that came out, and I had Better Than the Movies in paperback, but I could tell you I was so excited to read Nothing Like the Movies that I even bought the hardcover, which I rarely do for books. And I went to Target the day this came out at like 8 a.m. right when Target opened, and I bought this book because I was so excited for it. And I know there are a lot of mixed opinions about whether or not Better Than the Movies needed a second book. And here are my thoughts about that. First of all, did it absolutely need a second book? Like, was Better Than the Movies written to be a duology? No. But is the second book amazing, and was it worth getting a second book? Yes. Because in Better Than the Movies, it ends with Liz and Wes like happy, they've had feelings all together this time, and yeah, they're all so happy right now. That is great, but that is just like not realistic, I feel like. Like, especially when you are in high school. Even if you have been friends for that long or known each other that long, it is just not realistic. So I am very, very happy that Lynn Painter wrote a second book because, first of all, I loved this book. I love that it fast forwarded a couple of years and that they're in college. I love the baseball elements of it. I played softball. I still coach softball. I love it so much. So that was really, really great to see. I love that we got Wes's point of view and that this book is about him like trying to win Liz back. And I also love the grief element in this book because it starts off with Wes losing his dad, and that is kind of why Wes and Liz broke up, is because Wes left college, left UCLA to go back home and take care of his family, and then he basically like broke up with Liz just because he was miserable and didn't want to like drag her down with him, which is very, very similar to Belly and Conrad when Conrad broke up with her when his mom was sick at the prom and everything. Anyway, this book was amazing. I have not really stopped thinking about this book. I already want to reread it. I know I'm going to reread it next year. It was amazing. I love Wes so much, and I love Liz so much. It's perfect, and I like it better than the first book, to be honest. Like, I thought it was better. In November, I had 3 5-star reads. I'm going to talk about the first 2 together because they are The Naturals and then All In, which is the first book and then the third book in the Naturals series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, who is probably best known for writing the Inheritance Games trilogy. But The Naturals follows teenagers who are in this like FBI profiling program, and they are instructed to work on cold cases. I absolutely loved the first book. I feel like it was such a great introduction to the characters in the world. The second book was still great, but then the third book was amazing. I loved it so much, and the fourth and final book was still great, but these were the 2 that just like stuck out to me the most, and I had the most fun reading. Definitely recommend checking the series out. They were amazing books and super fast-paced. The last book that I'm going to talk about in this video, I also read in November, and it was a 5-star read right away, and that was Can't Help Falling in Love by Sophie Sullivan. I read this book in a day. It's about 300 pages, so it is short, but reading a book in a day is it's rare because I'm a full-time college student. I don't have a lot of time. So this means like I dedicated all of my free time to reading this book in that day. And I absolutely loved it. It follows Lexi and Will as they embark on like a fake dating. Actually, they're fake fiancés. And I love fake dating so much. It is my favorite trope always. And yeah, I love this book so much. Sophie Sullivan is an amazing writer. She always does closed-door romances, which I really appreciate. And this book also had like a grief element in it, which we're sensing a common theme between my 5-star books here. But I just love a romance that has fun flirting with a closed-door romance and then also has like a deeper element to it. So yeah, this was an immediate 5-star read, and I just love Sophie Sullivan so much. So those are my 5-star reads of 2024. Definitely if I have a 5-star read in December, I will make a separate video to include those. But those are the books that I just cannot stop thinking about, and I haven't stopped thinking about all year. Let me know if you have read any of these or if you have any book recommendations for me, and I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.